see, you won't have to send them anywhere. I'll pay for them.
Hi.
But then
Today I'd like
I'll
to
leave
talk
them here
about
for you.
how to assemble videos to accompany the music we make.
You work
I'm an
section.
amateur at video collage and video making in general, but I was able to make a video I'm fairly satisfied with using Reaper, Davinci Resolve, and some collaboration with an analog video synthesis friend of mine. I also leaned heavily on public domain film content for this. I'll show you where I obtained a bunch of the footage that I ended up using in the final product. I'm really excited to show the final video and music in the next few weeks, but in the interim, I thought you might be interested in some of the process I took to put it together.
It was a monkey.
Thank you.
As I mentioned in the last video, I'm going to have several full song music videos coming out over the next few months. 2 of these are collaborations on the video component, where I did the bulk of the editing, but had analog video synthesis mixed in as created by my friend CRULLSPIER. You can find him on Instagram, and I'll place a link to him in the description. The final video that I'll be releasing in about 2 months, I'm extremely excited about. It's made by an art horror filmmaker friend of mine, extremely talented dude, Torin Langen of Candle Flame Films. I'll definitely be putting a link to his work in the description as well, in case you want to check it out. So right now you are seeing a public domain film. A public domain film, by definition, has no copyright. It usually is an older film that is not valued to be put onto streaming services or anything like that. I thought this would be more interesting with music, so I've created a simple soundtrack that you're hearing, which goes along with the film. Prior to COVID, I was doing some gigs with a live film scoring unit, the VOC Silent Film Harmonic. We would rehearse, improvise scores for films, and then perform them in a real cinema. I'll also place a link to that live project in the description. When I worked with them, I tended to use my Dave Smith Instruments OB6. It has built-in effects, so it's a rather complete solution for using a synthesizer in a live environment, and it worked really well for the live scoring. Initially, I was somewhat intimidated to make full-length videos, assuming that I couldn't make them at a quality comparable to professionals. But as I like to tinker with music anyway, I'm finding working on videos uses a lot of the same concepts. I mean, if we think about it, both videos and music try to tell a story. Both mediums tend to have a narrative, and we need to create tension and release in film, much like we do in music. Today we're going to be talking about the first video I made for the song Science is Going On in the 80s. I had the privilege in mid-2018 of doing some television scoring for a sitcom made for Canadian streaming services called Kitchen Sink. I also ended up acting in the show, but that's another story. The initial ideas for the song Science came from the scoring that I did for the TV show. It was supposed to have a sort of techie feel to it as it was used during software development scenes in the show. While I had the Minimoog plugged in, dialing in the sound for the score, I split off a second session knowing full well I'd want to make a song out of the piece one day. I put it on the shelf and only came back to it after I was finished with the Kitchen Sink project. I did, however, come up with the song name really early in the process. I love naming unfinished tracks as it gives me a really focused direction for where I'm going to take them next. I released the song Science is Going On in the 80s in mid-2020 on my first EP, which is available on all major streaming platforms. When it was time to consider making the video, I wanted to retain a feeling of action and movement, much like the song had, and I thought of trying to find some dated science videos initially. I was unsuccessful at finding much in the way of science videos, but it was shortly after that I worked on a collage video with my friend Ryan for our jam band Vulcan Nightclub. I was really surprised how much I enjoyed making the video with Ryan, so I decided to make something quite similar for science. In both cases, we used a site called publicdomainmovies.net, which I will share in the description. I didn't have any trouble finding a lot of really interesting movies on that website. As I didn't think I'd be able to find enough interesting footage just on the subject of science, I broadened my scope to include science fiction and horror movies. I had zero video editing experience when I started this process. I started by checking out what Reaper had available for video editing, as I already use Reaper for music. There is a video processor plugin built into Reaper, and the nice folks over at the Reaper blog have created some configurations that you can use for some common video editing tasks. Let's take a look into the Reaper session where I compiled the bulk of this video. For the purposes of this video, I have the video on the right side and the DAW session on the left. Reaper has a video window you can pop open with a hotkey, and you can visually see what you're working on. First, I'd like you to notice I have a whole bunch of tracks on the left, and these correspond to all the individual films that I am referencing. This session has been lined up to the beat of the song so that I can crop different videos in time with the music. I'll push play so you can get an idea of what's going on. I do end up putting a title set onto this video in Davinci Resolve after the fact and doing some basic video effects. But essentially, the bulk of the film is the compilation of these various clips you can see being triggered at various times. I tried to use clips that I found captivating, but I also wanted to create a feeling of continuity. So I keep coming back to the same clips as a progression from where they were at the last moment you saw them. I want to create a feeling of moving forward in the individual movies while keeping the video exciting. In the video processor itself, there are various controls. Let's see what that looks like. The video processor in Reaper is quite powerful. It's basically kind of open source. It has this programming language in it, and I don't really dabble into that very much. I have adjusted little bits of code here and there because I do have some computer programming experience. But as you can see, it's just a standard plugin that you select, and then there's a whole bunch of different presets that you can use. These are all the Reaper blog presets at the bottom here. I obtained these by purchasing them from the Reaper blog. As you can see, each preset contains a bunch of controls, and one of the beauties is that you can automate these controls. So one common one that I might automate is opacity, and I'm already familiar with automating in Reaper using the visual representation that they have. In the middle of the song, I wanted to create something fundamentally different so that it kept the audience's interest. I decided on a split screen, so I'm using all clips from the same films, but I am now automating a move over to split screen, and as you can see, there's a horizontal position and cropping controls, and I had to slide these over so that as the film progresses, all of a sudden, we have now moved into a split screen section where I can have two films going, two levels of interest, and create a slightly different flow for the middle section of the song. Near the end of the song, I go back to a single screen view of the videos. After compiling the main video footage, I brought the video over into Davinci Resolve, which is a free software that has more, let's call them advanced video controls. This is where I made the text overlays and the title sequence, which you can now see are on top of the video. Davinci Resolve is an entire topic I can't get into in this video. It has its own learning curve entirely. With that said, I am still using Reaper for the majority of clip assembly because it's much more intuitive for laying out clips in a timeline to the rhythm of a song. If you're watching carefully, you'll notice a whole nother layer of clips automated onto the top of the video at this point. After overlaying the titles in Davinci, I sent the video over to my friend CRULLSPIER to do analog video synthesis on the top of the whole thing. Take note of the purple transparency automation tracks which accompany the new video. I didn't want the new video to completely supplant the old. I just wanted to feature it and highlight certain moments and rhythms in the song. Remember that, just like in the production of music, videos need various layers of interest to keep the audience interest through the entire film. That's all I have for you today, but I'm looking forward to showing you the final video in a few weeks for Science is Going On in the 80s. I hope this has been instructive. Please like and/or subscribe. It really does help. And I hope you're inspired to start experimenting with video clips.